If you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan, this is one of those stories that flies under the radar for a lot of people, but actually says far more than it seems at first glance. Because when a team starts adjusting the roster on the eve of Week 18, especially at such a specific position, it's rarely random. Usually, it's a signal, a quiet message, preparation for something bigger. The Eagles have been actively moving pieces around the roster over the past few days, trying to extract every possible inch of flexibility ahead of the regular season finale against the Washington Commanders. And even though some of these moves look small, almost administrative, the timing raises an uncomfortable question. Why make these changes now? In the middle of this busy stretch, the team announced the release of a veteran, a move that immediately sparked speculation, debate on social media, and different interpretations about what was really happening behind the scenes. Some saw it as temporary, others thought it was the beginning of a permanent change. But the truth is, very few people stopped to look at the full picture. Shortly after that, the Eagles announced they were bringing the same player back. Yes, the very player who had been released just days earlier. A quick back-and-forth move that looked strange on the surface and left many fans confused. But in the NFL, confusion rarely means mistake. More often, it means calculation. The player in question is veteran long snapper Charlie Hewlett, a name that doesn't usually make headlines but carries 11 years of NFL experience, including a full decade as a team captain with the Cleveland Browns. At 35 years old, Hewlett isn't someone teams move on a whim, and the Eagles certainly wouldn't make a decision like this without a clear reason. What stands out isn't just Hewlett's return to the organization, now on the practice squad. What really matters is how and when it happened. First, the release, then the waiver period, and finally, the return. All of it just days before the final game of the regular season. Is this kind of maneuver common in the NFL? Yes. Is it trivial? Not at all. In practical terms, the Eagles accomplished something very specific. They kept a trusted player within reach, preserved continuity at a critical special teams position, and at the same time temporarily opened roster space to maximize flexibility. It's a clean move, fully within the rules, but one that requires absolute precision. One miscalculation, and you lose the player. One timing error, and you create instability. And that's exactly why this kind of decision deserves attention. Charlie Hewlett appeared in 7 games for the Eagles this season. 7 wins. That's not coincidence, but it's also not an empty stat. Long snapper is the kind of position that only gets noticed when something goes wrong. When everything works, no one talks about it. And Hewlett did exactly that in the games he played. He started the season as the starter in the first 4 games, then landed on injured reserve with an abdominal injury. He returned over the last 3 weeks and stepped right back into the role without noise, without mistakes, without drama. In the most recent game, he snapped for Jake Elliott's field goals an extra point and helped Braden Mann average excellent distance on his punts. In other words, there wasn't an obvious on-field problem. So why make the move? The answer has less to do with individual performance and more to do with the team's mindset at this point in the season. The Eagles are treating Week 18 as a maximum risk. Nothing can be left uncontrolled. Nothing can be taken for granted. Every roster spot mattered. Every adjustment option mattered. Every alternate scenario needs to be mapped out. By releasing Hewlett and bringing him back to the practice squad, the team gains maneuvering room. They gain the ability to temporarily activate another player. They gain protection against unexpected injury. They gain flexibility for last-minute emergency, all without necessarily giving up someone they trust. This kind of decision doesn't show up in the box score. It doesn't fuel national debate, but it says a lot about the organization's level of attention to detail. And this is where an important point comes in. Teams that make deep playoff runs are usually the ones that master exactly these kinds of detail. They don't just worry about quarterbacks, wide receivers, and pass rushers. They worry about clean snaps, kicking timing, and punt positioning. Because one special team's mistake in the playoffs can end an entire season in seconds. At the same time, this move does carry risk, because when you operate near the edge of roster limit, you're relying on everything to go exactly as planned. You're counting on the player clearing waivers. You're counting on no unexpected offers appearing. You're counting on no last-minute injury forcing a difficult decision. It's a calculated gamble, but still a gamble. There's also a less obvious aspect to this kind of maneuver that has far more to do with internal control than with football itself. When a team makes this type of quiet adjustment, it's testing its own process. It's checking whether communication between the coaching staff, the front office, and the players is aligned. It's evaluating whether everyone understands the moment in the season and the level of focus required right now. For a franchise entering the playoffs with legitimate expectations, this kind of internal test is just as important as any practice on the field. And these details tend to surface when you least expect them, not in the first quarter, not when the score is under control, but in a tight game, in a hostile stadium with everything on the line, a late snap, broken timing, execution just slightly off. That's enough to swing a playoff game. The Eagles know this because they've lived it from both sides. That's why, when the team chooses to make a move now, even one that looks small, it's because they're trying to prevent exactly that kind of scenario down the road. And this ties directly into where the Eagles are as a team right now. This is a team that knows it's close, very close, but it also knows there's no margin for relaxation. Every small advantage has to be explored. Every loophole in the rules has to be used intelligently. And that applies just as much to major moves as it does to quiet, behind-the-scenes decisions like this one. What's most interesting is that at the end of all this, the Eagles didn't actually change long snapper. Hewlett is still in the picture, still available, still part of the plan. The difference is that now the team has more control over the roster, more options on the table, and more ability to react quickly to anything unexpected. To the casual fan, this looks confusing. To anyone who follows NFL roster management closely, it sounds like meticulous preparation. And it's no coincidence that this is happening right now. Week 18 isn't just another game, it's the final test before the playoffs. It's where coaches evaluate physical durability, where the front office stress tests scenarios, and where small decisions can have major consequences weeks later. Every adjustment made now is made with January in mind. Hewlett's return to the practice squad doesn't mean something is wrong, but it also doesn't mean everything is calm. It means the team is operating in full alert mode. It means the Eagles are trying to eliminate any unpleasant surprises before they have a chance to appear. And for fans, that can be both reassuring and unsettling. Reassuring because it shows organization, planning, and attention to detail. Unsettling because it reveals that the team knows it's walking a very thin line. At the end of the day, this move isn't really about a long snapper. It's about mindset, about how a franchise behaves when it understands that every detail can define its fate, about the difference between teams that simply reach the playoff and teams that truly prepare to survive them. Now, all that's left is to watch what comes next. See if the roster continues to be adjusted. See if similar moves follow. See how the team performs in Week 18. Because often, the most important signals come before the ball is even snapped. And if this week made one thing clear, it's that the Eagles are treating every decision, no matter how small it looks, as potentially decisive. In the playoffs, it's not always the biggest stars who determine who advances. Sometimes, it's the perfect snap at the perfect moment that keeps a season alive.